Atlantis is the story of those who, like today, would use the marvels of science to conquer and enslave. Atlantis, a world that worshipped strange gods of science.
What if Atlantis, the shining city that rose in power and vanished beneath the sea, was never just a myth, but a memory?
People connect to that story, and it's because of this idea of an ancient civilization, a utopia that we've evolved from.
For thousands of years, humanity has told the same story of a radiant city that rose in wisdom and power, only to vanish beneath the sea. Most believed it was a parable, a warning from Plato about pride and the fall of civilizations. But fragments of that story have echoed across cultures and continents from ancient Egypt to the Americas, as if the memory refused to die. And now, in 2025, artificial intelligence may have found what no human eye ever could: a vast, geometric structure buried beneath the Antarctic ice, perfectly symmetrical, impossibly old, and unlike anything known to modern civilization. If the data holds true, it will rewrite everything we thought we knew about our past. In this video, we'll explore how artificial intelligence connected forgotten maps, ancient texts, and geological evidence, and why those connections might finally reveal the truth of Atlantis. Don't look away, because what we're about to show you might rewrite the history you thought you knew. In the vast emptiness of the Sahara Desert, hidden from the world for most of history, lies a formation so strange it almost defies explanation. Locals call it the Eye of the Sahara. Scientists know it as the Richat structure. From the ground, it seems nothing more than barren rock and wind-carved ridges, but from above, it transforms into something extraordinary, a colossal spiral of concentric rings, like a gigantic fingerprint pressed into the earth, stretching nearly 40 kilometers across. It's so vast that NASA's Gemini astronauts first spotted it from orbit in the 1960s, and even they didn't know what they were looking at. For decades, the eye mocked every theory. Some said it was the scar of a meteorite. Others argued it was a collapsed volcano. A third group blamed erosion, carving patterns into limestone and sandstone over millions of years. Yet none of these explanations ever quite fit. Its geometry was too deliberate, its symmetry too exact, as if nature had followed a design that wasn't its own. Then, the mystery deepened. The breakthrough didn't come from a shovel in the sand, but from artificial intelligence, using satellite imagery, elevation mapping, and geological pattern recognition. AI began connecting data points across eras from ancient texts to modern terrain, when those data sets overlapped. One pattern emerged that scientists couldn't ignore. The Eye of the Sahara matched almost perfectly with Plato's 2,400-year-old description of Atlantis. Plato described a magnificent city built in rings of land and water, 3 of sea, 2 of earth joined by bridges, with a canal opening to the south that led to the ocean. The Richat structure, though dry today, mirrors that design with uncanny precision. Even the southern breach aligns exactly where Plato said ships once entered the harbor. Geological surveys confirm water once flowed through that gap, and salt deposits and marine sediments still mark the basin evidence that this desert eye once held water during the African humid period, when the Sahara was green and alive. Beyond the rings lies a vast rectangular plain, described by Plato as fertile and immense. AI terrain mapping has confirmed this surrounding region's remarkable flatness, stretching hundreds of kilometers, a landscape that could once have supported agriculture, livestock, and trade. Within the eye itself, alternating layers of red sandstone, black basalt, and white quartz perfectly echo Plato's account of Atlantis's tricolored stones: red, black, and white used to adorn its temples and walls. These aren't coincidences. They're fingerprints, clues left behind by a world that might have existed before recorded history. It's as if the land itself had been carved to mirror a legend, and if that resemblance is not an accident, but a memory, then perhaps the truth of Atlantis has never been lost beneath the sea at all, but hidden in plain sight, waiting for the age of machines to finally see it. While the legend of Atlantis has long been dismissed as fantasy, the ground beneath the Sahara tells a quieter, older story, one written not in myth, but in stone. But what if the desert itself has been keeping a memory, one older than any civilization we know? Core samples taken near the Richat structure reveal layers of marine sediments and fossilized shells, undeniable proof that this desert once held vast bodies of water. Chemical traces of salt and diatoms, microscopic algae that survive only in standing water, suggest the region was once part of a vast river-lake system, perhaps even connected to an ancient inland sea. Imagine standing there now, surrounded by silence and dunes, knowing that you're standing atop what was once an ocean floor. During the African humid period, roughly 11,000 to 5,000 years ago, monsoon rains transformed the Sahara into a lush savanna, a land of rivers, lakes, and life. If Plato's Atlantis was a civilization born in abundance, this timeline fits almost perfectly. In what is now Mauritania, the eye would not have been a desert, but the center of a fertile world teeming with life. And it's not just the presence of water that fascinates scientists, it's the patterns it left behind. Satellite scans reveal networks of ancient riverbeds radiating outward from the eye, like veins from a living heart. These channels appear to have once fed or drained a central basin, their circular arrangement uncannily similar to Plato's harbors and canals. Whether this geometry was crafted by nature or shaped by human hands, the resemblance is impossible to ignore. Even the rocks whisper of catastrophe. Fault lines beneath the structure suggest the region once endured violent seismic activity earthquakes strong enough to reshape the land. Some geologists believe such tremors could have collapsed whatever settlements existed here, burying them beneath layers of sediment as the climate dried and the waters vanished. Could this have been the real one day and one night of misfortune? Plato described every tremor, every flood, every drought leaves its trace. The earth moves slowly, but it never forgets. Archaeologists have found stone tools, pottery fragments, and traces of early habitation scattered across the plains, surrounding the eye evidence of ancient life long before recorded history. None prove Atlantis, but all confirm that civilizations once flourished here, only to be swallowed by time. Long before satellites charted continents, ancient geographers drew maps of a world they barely understood. And some of those maps contain something extraordinary, a name written more than 2,000 years ago, in the very region we now call the Eye of the Sahara Atlantia. The earliest trace comes from Pomponius Mela, a Roman geographer writing around 43 AD. On one of history's first known world maps, he labeled a mysterious territory Atlantia on the northwest edge of Africa, near the edge of the known world. For centuries, it was dismissed as a forgotten tribe or myth. But when modern researchers, and later, AI-assisted cartographic software overlaid Mela's markings onto satellite geography, the coordinates aligned almost perfectly with the Richat structure in Mauritania. Even older references exist. A map attributed to Herodotus, drawn nearly 5 centuries earlier, described a people he called the Atlantes living deep within the Libyan desert. That same description matches the interior of Mauritania. When AI analysts merged these ancient maps with modern topography, the result was chilling. Both Mela's Atlantia and Herodotus's Atlantis pointed to the same region, the Eye of the Sahara. Some scholars believe this knowledge was inherited from civilizations long lost to time, perhaps the very survivors Plato wrote of. Others see it as coincidence. But either way, the implication is staggering. Long before modern science, someone had already marked the shadow of Atlantis and called it by name. While skeptics dismiss the Eye of the Sahara as a geological oddity, new data tells a far stranger story. First, the question of water. Plato described Atlantis as a city built in concentric rings of land and sea. Today, the Eye appears barren, but geological surveys reveal thick layers of salt and evaporate minerals gathered in its lowest basins. AI-assisted stratigraphic scans confirm their chemical signature matches seawater, not fresh water, suggesting that the Richat once held brackish, possibly tidal water. In other words, this desert eye may once have been a harbor. The fossil record deepens the mystery. Excavations throughout the 1990s and early 2000s uncovered mollusks and aquatic species in and around the structure. Dating between 15,000 and 700 years ago, the very window Plato gave for Atlantis' destruction. Around 11,600 years ago, AI-driven climate models of that same era depict the Sahara as a lush, green belt of rivers, lakes, and deltas, a landscape capable of sustaining a civilization. Then there's the matter of heat. Plato's texts spoke of springs, some hot, some cold, flowing within the city. For centuries, scholars dismissed this as myth, yet geological reports from the 1990s identified the Eye as a hydrothermal dome complex, a site of ancient geothermal activity. Recent AI thermal imaging confirmed the presence of subsurface heat anomalies, evidence that hot and cold waters once circulated here. What was once dismissed as fantasy may have been literal truth. And finally, the scars of disaster. From space, vast erosion channels stretch westward from the Eye toward the Atlantic. once thought to be wind-formed. New hydrological modeling reveals they are flood pathways carved by torrents powerful enough to move boulders the size of houses. Somewhere in the deep past, a cataclysm tore through this land, flooding it before drying it to dust. When all these fragments, salt traces, marine fossils, geothermal evidence, and flood scars are merged through AI-based climate reconstruction, a breathtaking vision emerges: a Sahara 12,000 years ago, alive with rivers and lakes, centered on a circular citadel gleaming like an island fortress. It's a vision that matches Plato's account with unsettling precision, and it forces us to wonder, was Atlantis ever truly lost? Or have we simply been looking in the wrong place all along? Reality of this has always been disbelieved by skeptics, since why would a mythical island out in the ocean be full of elephants? To understand that, you have to look at the Sahara. In the ancient cave art found in Mauritania and the surrounding region, there are wholesome pictures of elephants, giraffes, and other extinct large fauna. They painted these animals when the desert was said to be green, by fossil evidence. This very landscape had elephants in the same epoch that Atlantis was supposed to exist. And interestingly, Mauritania, as late as the 1851 treaties, refers to such an area as being replete with ivory. Both the art and the history lend credence to Plato's assertion. Furthermore, according to the history of Atlantis, its agricultural output was nothing short of phenomenal, exhibiting fertile land and lush gardens at first sight. This contradicts what we see in the Sahara. However, AI reconstruction of climate does agree that 12,000 years ago, this desert was not a desert. With all the rivers, lakes, and vegetation, the region was known as the Green Sahara. Perhaps the plains surrounding the Eye of the Sahara could have afforded support for massive populations to cultivate crops and feed their cattle, a picture granted worthy of being planted in Plato's descriptions. Gold, ivory, fertile lands, and vast herds vividly paint a picture of staggering abundance, which, if a civilization ever thrived here, would easily represent the proverbial riches that gave rise to the fables drawn in the dialogues of Plato. Just as the fate of empires hinges on wealth from trade, so too would the fabled Atlantis attract waves of people from afar, feeding the tales across the ages. Yet wealth is not the only striking similarity. AI also highlighted mountains, rivers, and names that connect the Sahara to Plato's lost empire. Just north of the Eye of the Sahara rises a vast mountain chain, the Atlas Mountains, stretching across Morocco, Algeria, and into Mauritania. This rugged spine marks the northern edge of the Sahara. In Plato's dialogue, the philosopher described a great mountain range to the north of the city, sheltering Atlantis from the cold winds and feeding rivers into the plains below. On the map, the alignment is almost uncanny. The eye lies directly south of the Atlas Range, exactly where the text said it would. But the similarity doesn't end with terrain. According to ancient tradition, the first king of the region that is now Mauritania was named Atlas, the same name Plato gave to the first ruler of Atlantis, the son of Poseidon himself. This name, carried across thousands of years and languages, seems to have anchored itself in the very soil of North Africa. Even the rivers seem to remember. Beneath the sands of the Western Sahara, scientists have mapped the dry course of a massive ancient river, the Tamanrasset River, using radar imaging and AI topographic modeling. Geologists have reconstructed its flow, a colossal channel that once ran from the heart of the desert all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, right past the Richat structure. During the African humid period, it would have been a roaring artery of life, and perhaps, as some theorists suggest, the very canal to the sea described in Plato's writings. If true, the Eye would not have been an isolated crater in a wasteland, but a thriving basin connected by rivers and mountains, a crossroads of water, trade, and civilization, deep beneath the sands surrounding the Richat structure. Scientists have discovered chaotic sediment layers, deposits typical of massive flooding and rapid collapse. Mixed within them are marine microfossils and debris carried inland from ancient coastlines, implying that the region once suffered a tsunami-scale inundation. Radar scans have even traced patterns resembling underwater landslides and shelf collapses off the coast of West Africa, dated to roughly 11,600 years ago, the same era Plato gave for Atlantis' destruction. The pieces begin to align. Around that same time, one of the largest volcanoes in the Sahara, Emikusi, located to the east in present-day Chad, shows evidence of violent eruption. Volcanic ash deposits found across North Africa match its chemical signature. combined with regional fault line activity beneath the eye. This paints a chilling picture, a chain reaction of earthquakes, eruptions, and floods that could have reshaped the land overnight. AI modeling has helped scientists simulate what such an event might have looked like by integrating paleoclimate data, seismic maps, and topographic reconstructions. The simulation reveals a terrifying possibility, a rapid crustal shift, triggering both earthquakes and flood pulses across the ancient Tamanrasset Basin. The resulting wall of water would have swept westward, eroding, collapsing, and burying everything in its path beneath layers of mud and sand. What Plato described as divine punishment may have been something far more human, the planet's own fury during a time of climatic chaos. Around 12,000 years ago, the world was emerging from the last ice age. Melting glaciers raised sea levels by tens of meters, while sudden freshwater releases disrupted global weather systems. The Sahara's once green heart began to die, its rivers retreating, its lakes evaporating into dust. Within a few centuries, or perhaps within a single cataclysmic night, the cradle of life turned into a tomb. The Eye of the Sahara, once surrounded by water, became an eye of stone. Across cultures that never met, from the temples of India to the deserts of Mesopotamia, from the jungles of South America to the islands of the Pacific, we find the same haunting refrain stories of a world that rose in greatness and was washed away. In ancient Sumer, the epic of Ziusudra spoke of a flood sent by the gods to cleanse a fallen age. In India, the Matsya Purana tells of a man warned by a divine being to build a vessel before the waters came. Among the Maya and Inca, legends tell of white-bearded teachers from the sea who brought knowledge after a great deluge. Even the Aboriginal Australians and Pacific Islanders speak of rising waters and stars that shifted as if the heavens themselves recorded the flood. For centuries, scholars dismissed these as coincidences, moral parables born of human imagination. But what happens when artificial intelligence compares them side by side, using linguistic datasets and mythological archives from dozens of civilizations? AI-driven analysis has begun to identify statistical patterns, recurring motifs of floods, destruction, and rebirth, often dated to around the same geological period, roughly 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. The same window of time that science now calls the Younger Dryas boundary event, when a sudden climate shift and possible comet impact triggered global chaos. The parallels are staggering. What Plato called Atlantis, the Sumerians called Eridu, the Hindus remembered as Satya Yuga, and the Maya as the age before the sun, all describing a lost world, all ending in flood. Could it be that these myths are not separate stories at all, but fragments of a single human memory, a collective echo of the same cataclysm retold through different tongues? If so, then Atlantis is more than a city. It's an idea, a mirror held up to every age of humanity, reflecting our cycle of rise and fall, knowledge and loss. Modern science now finds itself standing where myth once stood, peering into ancient sediments, decoding forgotten DNA, reconstructing climates through algorithms, and discovering that what we thought were stories, in part, have been history all along. All paths now lead to one place, the Eye of the Sahara. Geological records, ancient maps, forgotten myths, and cutting-edge AI models all converge upon this single point in the desert, as if history itself has been waiting to be rediscovered. For centuries, Atlantis lived only in the realm of imagination, a warning, a legend, a dream. But today, technology has blurred the line between story and science. Artificial intelligence, trained on data both ancient and modern, is revealing connections that human eyes once missed, patterns hidden across continents, timelines, and texts. Perhaps the eye is not just a place, but a symbol proof that myth and memory are not opposites, but reflections of the same truth. And as machines learn to read the forgotten language of the earth, one question remains. What if Atlantis has been found, and the truth of our past is no longer a legend, but a discovery?